sends you a news alert that just makes you stop what you're doing.
Yeah.
That was me this morning with the news from Madrid. Andrii Portnov, assassinated.
A huge name in Ukrainian politics, or at least a very controversial one.
Exactly. And the place.
Yeah.
Right outside the American School in Madrid. Middle of the morning.
You can just imagine the scene. Parents dropping kids off. It's incredibly brazen.
It really suggests a targeted hit, doesn't it? Not random at all.
Absolutely. The location, the timing, it sends a message, and it immediately throws up so many questions.
Which is why we're doing this deep dive. We're going beyond just the breaking news alerts.
Right. We've pulled together reports from several places, WFTV, Al Jazeera, Spanish outlets like El Mundo, Ukrainian sources like the Kyiv Independent, New Voice of Ukraine, liga.net.
And his Wikipedia page, too, in the background. We want to piece together who he was, what happened, and, well, what it might all mean.
The goal here is to give you, the listener, a clear, concise understanding. Cut through the noise, connect the dots between his past and this shocking event.
Okay, so let's start with the man himself. Who was Andrii Portnov?
Well, he was born back in 73 in Luhansk, which is, in eastern Ukraine, started as a lawyer.
And got involved in politics pretty early on, right? Working with Yulia Tymoshenko.
Yes. From around 2005 to 2010, he was actually head of the legal department for her election campaigns. So right in the thick of it during a very turbulent time.
But then he switched allegiances, or at least shifted focus.
He did, massively. When Viktor Yanukovych came to power in 2010, Portnov became a really key figure in his administration.
What kind of roles did he have?
Pretty high-level stuff. Deputy head of presidential administration, and crucially, head of the main department for judiciary. He had significant influence over the courts.
And Yanukovych was famously pro-Russian, so Portnov was firmly in that camp by then.
Absolutely, and this is where things get really controversial. His involvement in drafting those dictatorship laws in January 2014.
Yes, the laws designed to crush Euromaidan protests.
Exactly. They drastically limited rights like freedom of speech and assembly. They were seen as a direct assault on civil liberties, and frankly, they just poured fuel on the fire.
So when the revolution actually succeeded, a month later, in February 2014,
he was out of there, fled Ukraine pretty quickly.
Where did he go? First
to Russia, then reports say he moved to Austria for a while and eventually ended up in Spain. That timeline is important.
And even in exile, he wasn't exactly keeping a low profile, was he? There were sanctions.
Right. The U.S. sanctioned him in December 2021. The allegations were serious corruption, specifically related to the judiciary. Things like buying influence, bribing court officials.
Plus undermining the rule of law, basically.
That was the accusation, yes. Trying to stack the deck, control judicial outcomes.
But then something interesting happens. He comes back to Ukraine.
He does. In May 2019, right after Volodymyr Zelensky won the presidential election.
Why then? Did he see an opportunity?
It certainly looked that way. He had apparently supported Zelensky during the campaign, maybe saw the changing of the guard from Poroshenko, whom he clearly disliked, as his chance.
And he immediately started, filing lawsuits against Poroshenko?
Yeah, he launched a whole series of legal actions against the former president. It seemed like settling scores, perhaps, or trying to reestablish himself.
But he didn't stay.
No. He left Ukraine again in June 2022. This was a few months after Russia's full-scale invasion began.
And that was controversial too, right? Because men of military age weren't supposed to leave.
Exactly. The fact that he managed to leave raised a lot of questions about, potential connections or maybe special permissions. It wasn't fully clear how he got out.
Okay, so that gives us a picture of a very complex, very controversial figure. Let's turn to the assassination itself now.
Right. So Wednesday, May 21st, 2025. Just after 9 a.m. local time in Madrid.
And the location outside the American school in Pozuelo de Arcon? That's an upscale neighborhood, isn't it?
It is. Not some hidden alley, a very public place, especially at that time of day. He was reportedly dropping off his children.
Which makes it even more horrific.
Absolutely. Reports say he was shot multiple times. Some say several, others are saying 5 shots, with at least 3 hitting his head and torso.
So, a very deliberate close-range attack.
It sounds like it. Medics confirmed him dead at the scene.
And witnesses, what did they see?
Early reports mention multiple attackers, maybe 2 or 3 gunmen, who then fled on foot towards a nearby wooded area.
Is it just some planning? An escape route?
Definitely. The police cordoned off the area immediately, and the investigation is obviously underway.
And we know he had children at the school.
Yes, that seems confirmed. Some reports mention a son in 4th grade. Another mentioned he had 4 children in total, though it's not clear if they were all there. The impact on the family, on the school community. It's hard to imagine.
Just awful. So the huge question, motive. Who would want him dead and why?
Well, given his history, there are, unfortunately, quite a few possibilities. The political angle is unavoidable.
His time with Yanukovych, the dictatorship laws. He made powerful enemies in Ukraine.
Absolutely. People who felt betrayed, people who suffered under those laws. And his pro-Russia stance, especially now during the full-scale war, that's a huge factor.
So Ukrainian political enemies are one possibility. What else?
Well, there's the corruption angle. Those U.S. sanctions weren't just symbolic. They pointed to real allegations of financial wrongdoing.
And El País, the Spanish paper, mentioned something about debt issues.
Yes, citing unnamed police sources. That adds another layer. Financial motives, maybe business deals gone wrong, large debts. It's possible. Remember the allegations in Ukraine about embezzlement, too.
Right, misappropriating state assets. That could create long-lasting grudges.
Definitely. And then Elma Nomerica also threw another possibility into the mix, links to organized crime.
Okay, so that widens the net considerably.
Here. It does. If he was involved in that world, the reasons could be numerous and, frankly, much harder to untangle from the outside.
We should also probably mention the legal cases against him in Ukraine over the years.
Yes, things like treason related to the annexation of Crimea, though that specific case was apparently closed in 2019. But it shows the kind of serious accusations he faced.
And inevitably, in situations like this, speculation runs wild, right?
It does. You see mentions, though totally unconfirmed, of maybe Ukrainian state involvement, or maybe even Russian involvement, perhaps silencing him, or some kind of internal score settling.
But we need to be really clear that's pure speculation.
Absolutely critical. We have to stick to the reported facts and the plausible motives based on his known history. The investigation has to run its course.
It's also worth noting that the location again, Spain. This isn't the first incident involving high-profile Russians or Ukrainians there since 2022, is it?
No, it isn't. There were those letter bombs sent to Ukrainian embassies and other targets back in 2022.
And that Russian pilot who defected, Maxim Kuzminov, he was found shot dead in Spain just last February.
Right. So Spain seems to have become, unfortunately, a sort of a secondary theater for these conflicts and score settlings, maybe seen as easier ground than elsewhere.
And Portnov himself. He had a reputation for being litigious, didn't he?
Very much so. He famously sued the Kiev Independent for calling him pro-Russian, which, well, seems like a difficult case to argue given his history, but it shows he fought hard over his public image.
And again, that exit from Ukraine in 2022, dodging the travel ban. It still hangs there as a question about his influence or connections.
It does. It adds to the picture of someone who operated in complex ways, perhaps outside the usual rules.
Okay, so let's try to wrap this up. We have Andrii Portnov, a major, deeply controversial figure from Ukraine's recent political past. Power, corruption allegations, shifting sides, exile.
Assassinated very publicly, very brutally, outside his kid's school in Madrid.
And while we can outline his history and the circumstances, the why and the who are still big question marks.
Exactly. For you, the listener, the key takeaway is understanding this isn't just a simple crime. It's deeply rooted in Ukrainian politics, the war, alleged corruption, and international intrigue.
We hope this dive has given you that deeper context, showing the layers beneath the headlines. It really touches on those huge political divides, the impact of sanctions, and this strange, shadowy world of exiled figures.
And maybe something to think about. How might an event like this ripple outwards? Could it affect, say, Ukraine-Russia relations, already at rock bottom? What does it signal about conflicts playing out across borders?
And what else might come to light as the Spanish police dig deeper? It feels like there might be more to this story still buried.